Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload. I used to think betrayal was something that only happened in movies, dramatic, exaggerated, and distant. But the day I found out my fiancé cheated on me with my own brother, I learned that reality can cut far deeper than fiction ever dares to. It started with small things, late replies, canceled plans, the way she started locking her phone. Her name was Emily, and for 5 years she had been my whole world. We'd met in college. She was spontaneous, witty, the kind of woman who could make a dull day feel like an adventure. We built our life together one piece at a time. The shared apartment, the goofy photos, the promises whispered before sleep. I thought I knew her soul like my own reflection. My brother Ethan was the opposite of me, charming, reckless, and always the center of attention. Growing up, he'd been the golden child, the one my parents adored no matter what he did. I was the dependable one, the fixer, the one who quietly kept everything from falling apart. It didn't matter how much I achieved. Somehow, Ethan always managed to shine brighter. Still, I never resented him. He was my brother, my best friend. I trusted him more than anyone. Then came the night that tore everything apart. Emily said she needed some space to think before the wedding. "Just a week," she told me. "I'm overwhelmed. I love you, but I need to clear my head." I understood, or thought I did. I told her to take all the time she needed. She went to stay at her friend's place, except she didn't. A few days later, I went to my parents' house for dinner. Ethan wasn't supposed to be there. He said he was busy with work. When I walked in, my mom looked nervous, almost guilty. My dad couldn't meet my eyes. I asked what was going on, but they brushed it off. Something felt off, but I tried to ignore it. That night, as I was leaving, I saw a car parked near the end of the street, Emily's car. My heart dropped. Maybe she'd come to talk, I told myself. Maybe this was a surprise. But when I walked closer, I saw the lights on inside my brother's apartment window. I should have turned around. I should have spared myself the pain, but I didn't. Through the half-open curtains, I saw them. Emily. Ethan. Together. My knees went weak. It felt like the air had been sucked out of my chest. Every moment we'd shared, every promise, every laugh, all of it shattered in an instant. I stood there frozen, watching the people I loved most betray me in the most intimate way possible. My hands were shaking so badly that I dropped my phone. The sound must have startled them because the curtain shifted slightly. A silhouette moved. I backed away before they saw me. I don't remember the drive home. I don't remember how long I sat in my car afterward, staring blankly into the night. All I know is that something inside me broke, and something else took its place. The next morning, I confronted Emily. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just asked one question. Why him? She hesitated, tears filling her eyes, but her silence said enough. I walked out before she could answer. I thought maybe my family would stand by me. Surely they'd be furious with Ethan, disappointed in Emily. Surely someone would tell me I didn't deserve this, but when I told them, they looked uncomfortable. My mother's first words were, "Maybe it just happened. People make mistakes." My father told me to be the bigger person. Ethan didn't even deny it. He just said he didn't mean to hurt me. Didn't mean to hurt me. It was like I was the one at fault for not being understanding enough. They treated it like a family misunderstanding instead of a betrayal. That was the day I realized I was alone. I called off the wedding that night. Emily tried to apologize, begged me to talk, said it was a mistake, and that she still loved me. I told her it was over. I thought ending it would bring closure, but instead, it left a hole so deep it ached to breathe. For weeks I wandered through my days like a ghost. I'd wake up and forget for a few seconds that my world had collapsed. Then the memory would come rushing back, sharp as glass. My phone buzzed with messages from people asking about the wedding, from friends wondering why I'd gone silent. I ignored them all. Then one day I got a message from an old friend of Emily's, a woman named Clara. She said she thought I should know the truth. Apparently Emily and Ethan had been seeing each other for months. It hadn't been a single lapse in judgment. It had been a secret affair. My brother had confided in her friend, bragging that he and Emily were meant to be, and that I would get over it eventually. That was when something inside me shifted again. I'd spent weeks drowning in sadness, replaying what I could have done differently. But now? The sadness hardened into something cold, controlled, focused. If they wanted to build their perfect little world on lies, fine. But I wasn't going to let them enjoy it for long. I started small, watching, listening, observing how my family treated them. They invited Emily to family dinners. My parents acted like nothing had happened. Even my relatives started calling their relationship fate. Every time I saw a photo of them together, smiling like nothing was wrong, it fueled the quiet fire building inside me. But revenge isn't about rage, it's about patience. And I had plenty of that now. So I began crafting a plan, not one of impulsive destruction, but of quiet precision. I didn't want to scream or lash out. I wanted them to feel what I had felt, to watch everything they'd built come apart piece by piece, without ever realizing I was behind it. I knew Emily's weaknesses, her obsession with reputation, her need for validation, her tendency to gossip. I knew Ethan's too, his reckless behavior, his financial secrets, the lies he told to make himself look better. All I needed to do was wait for the right moment. That moment came sooner than expected. Ethan had recently started working with my father's company, hoping to prove himself. My father trusted him blindly, but I knew Ethan's history, his careless spending, his shortcuts. I started gathering everything I could about his work. Missing invoices, misused funds, things that could look very bad if exposed. Meanwhile, Emily was working on launching a small boutique with help from my mother. I offered to help with the branding, pretending to be civil for the sake of family harmony. She bought the act completely, relieved that I was maturing past the pain. In reality, I was setting up the first domino. Through quiet nights and fake smiles, I laid the groundwork for what would come next. The heartbreak had burned away the last traces of the person I used to be. I wasn't seeking forgiveness anymore. I was building justice, my own kind. And as I watched Ethan and Emily laughing together at another family dinner, unaware that their perfect little world was sitting on a foundation of lies ready to collapse, I finally felt something close to peace. The storm hadn't arrived yet, but it was coming. They just didn't know that I was the one bringing it. The weeks that followed were calm, on the surface at least. To everyone else, it looked as if I had moved on. I went back to work, started jogging again, even smiled when people asked how I was holding up. But underneath that calm exterior, every breath was measured, every move calculated. Revenge wasn't about anger anymore. It was about balance. They had taken my peace, my trust, my dignity, and I wanted them to feel that loss. Not through violence or shouting, but through consequences that felt inevitable, like gravity pulling down a fragile tower they'd built on lies. The first opportunity came through Emily's boutique. She had been bragging online about her upcoming store launch, posting daily updates about the decor, her vision, the people she planned to partner with. What she didn't realize was that one of the suppliers she was working with had once been a client of mine. I reached out under the guise of reconnecting. We met for coffee. I listened to him talk about how difficult Emily had been. Constant changes, late payments, unrealistic demands. "Sounds like a nightmare client," I said, pretending to sympathize. He sighed. "Honestly, I'm about ready to pull out." That was all I needed. A few polite words, a quiet nudge, and he decided to cut ties with her boutique. I didn't even have to lie. I simply let the truth do the heavy lifting. A few days later, Emily called me. "I don't know if you heard," she said, her voice shaking, "but one of my suppliers just backed out last minute. It's a disaster." I feigned surprise. "That's awful. I hope it works out." Her tone softened. "You're being so kind about all this. I know I hurt you, but I never wanted things to end like this." It was strange, hearing her say that while knowing she was still living with Ethan, pretending everything was fine. I ended the call politely, letting her think I was the same forgiving fool I used to be. Meanwhile, Ethan had begun to slip up at work. He was late on reports, missing meetings, and making excuses that sounded thinner each time. My father, ever the optimist when it came to Ethan, kept covering for him. But I was patient. I'd already planted seeds months earlier. I'd quietly shared a few concerns with one of the auditors at the company, someone I knew professionally. Not accusations, just observations. "Hey," I'd said casually, "you might want to double-check some of the numbers on Ethan's end. He's been handling a lot lately. Wouldn't want anything to fall through the cracks." That was all it took. Within weeks, small discrepancies started surfacing. Minor at first, then significant enough to raise eyebrows. When the internal audit began, Ethan panicked. He tried to fix the numbers to cover the mess, but the harder he tried, the deeper he dug himself in. And through it all, I watched silently. Every time I saw a family photo online, my parents smiling beside Emily and Ethan, pretending they were the happy couple who'd triumphed over scandal, I didn't feel rage anymore, just quiet satisfaction. They had replaced me so easily, but they were about to learn that some replacements come at a cost. At one of our rare family dinners, my mother turned to me and said, "I'm so proud of you for being mature about everything. You could have held a grudge, but instead you've shown real grace." I smiled. "Thanks, Mom. I guess I've learned to let things go." Ethan raised his glass. "To new beginnings." I raised mine too, holding his gaze just long enough for him to shift uncomfortably. He didn't know why, but something in that moment made him uneasy. Maybe it was the way I smiled, not angry, not bitter, just knowing. 2 months later, Emily's boutique finally opened. The launch was lavish. My parents attended, local press covered it, and social media was flooded with congratulatory posts. I even received an invitation, which I politely declined. But I sent flowers, white lilies, a card that read, "For new beginnings, with sincerity." She posted them online, tagging me in the caption, "Proof that healing is possible." If only she knew. A week later, her boutique's website went live. It was sleek, beautifully designed, by me. Or rather by a friend I had hired under her branding agency's name. She had trusted me enough to help with the site's domain registration and social accounts. What she didn't realize was that she'd given me administrative access when I helped set up the accounts months earlier. So when the first wave of fake reviews started appearing, subtle but damaging, I didn't need to lift a finger publicly. Just a few well-timed comments about poor customer service, inconsistent pricing, and low-quality products. They spread like wildfire. Within a week, her 5-star rating dropped to 3. Suppliers started hesitating. Influencers backed out of partnerships. All the while, I remained her supportive ex. Then came the second phase, Ethan. By now, the audit had found enough inconsistencies in his work that the board had started asking questions. My father tried to protect him, but the numbers didn't lie. Ethan's shortcuts had cost the company money, and someone had to take responsibility. I made sure the right people saw the right evidence at the right time. Emails, reports, timestamps. I didn't forge anything. I just revealed what was already there. The day Ethan was called into a disciplinary meeting, he showed up at my apartment unannounced. "Did you do this?" he asked, eyes blazing. I stared at him calmly. "Do what?" "Don't play dumb, man. Someone's been feeding information to the auditors. You've hated me since what happened." "Hated you?" I said softly. "No. You made your choices." He stepped closer, jaw tight. "You'll never move on if you keep living in the past." I smiled faintly. "Maybe, but it looks like the past caught up to you first." He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I didn't stop him. 2 days later, the company suspended him pending investigation. My father was furious, at the auditors, at the board, at everyone except Ethan himself. He called me that night, his voice thick with anger. "You could have warned us," he said. "You work in finance. You knew this was serious." "I thought Ethan had it under control," I said. "He always does, right?" There was silence on the other end, heavy and bitter. For the first time, I think he realized that his golden child wasn't so golden after all. Meanwhile, Emily's boutique was falling apart. Negative reviews turned into refund demands. One of her business partners pulled out after discovering irregularities in the finances. Irregularities Ethan had helped her manage. The irony was delicious. They had built their dream together, and it was crumbling under the same lack of integrity that had defined their relationship from the start. But I wasn't done. One evening, I received a message from a journalist friend who worked in local media. He'd seen some of the drama online and reached out, curious about the backstory. I didn't name names. I just told him there was a human interest story and how betrayal and ambition can spiral out of control when trust is broken. He did the rest, dug up details, cross-referenced timelines, pieced together a narrative about a local business facing backlash over internal deceit. When the article went live, It didn't mention Emily or Ethan directly, but anyone who knew them could connect the dots. The fallout was immediate. Emily's boutique went into temporary closure. Ethan, already under investigation, couldn't find another job easily. His name had quietly circulated through professional circles as someone unreliable. My parents tried to hold the family together, but resentment seeped into every conversation. My mother cried during dinner. My father stopped talking to Ethan altogether, and me? I went on with my life. I started a new job in a different city, bought a small apartment overlooking the river, joined a photography club. For the first time in years, I felt free. Not because I'd hurt them, but because I'd taken back control. One afternoon, months later, I got a message from Emily. "I know what you did," it said. "You ruined us." I stared at the screen for a long time before typing back. "I didn't ruin you, Emily. You just finally saw what you built." She never replied. That night I sat on my balcony, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. The air was cool, the world quiet. Revenge hadn't healed me completely, but it had restored something deeper, my sense of self. Still, there was one last piece left undone. Because while Emily and Ethan's downfall had been satisfying, it hadn't yet reached the people who had made it possible. The ones who told me to get over it, who made me feel small for being betrayed, my parents. And the plan I had for them would make everything before it look like mercy. Months passed before I spoke to my parents again. By then, the dust had settled around Ethan and Emily. Their picture-perfect world was gone. The boutique had closed, Ethan had left town, and the family group chat that once overflowed with cheerful updates now sat silent. My parents still believed I was being distant, but they never once asked why. They didn't need to. Deep down, they knew. When I finally visited home, my father looked older. The weight of disappointment sat on his shoulders, and for once, Ethan wasn't there to absorb the light. My mother greeted me at the door with a forced smile, as though pretending that everything was normal would make it so. Over dinner, the silence between us was thick. My father cleared his throat. "You haven't called much." "I've been busy," I said calmly. "You know how work gets." He nodded but didn't push. My mother tried to fill the space with small talk, but every word felt brittle. Finally, I set down my fork and looked at them. "You both told me to get over it," I said quietly. "When Emily and Ethan betrayed me, you made me feel like it was my fault for caring. You chose comfort over truth." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "We just didn't want to lose both our sons. We thought—" "You thought wrong," I interrupted gently. "You didn't just lose one. You lost the one who never lied to you." My father stared at his plate, unable to meet my gaze. There was no anger in my voice, only clarity. "I'm not here for revenge," I continued. "I just wanted you to see what blind loyalty costs. You built your world around appearances, and when the truth cracked it open, you looked away. You protected the wrong people." The silence that followed was heavier than any argument could have been. Before I left, my mother reached for my hand. "Can we fix this?" I gave her a small, sad smile. "Maybe someday. But for now, I need peace more than family." And with that, I walked away, not in triumph, but in freedom. That night, I drove out to the old lake where Emily and I had once planned to get married. The venue was still there, quiet under the fading light. I sat on the dock, the same spot where I had once imagined a future with her, and let the reflection of the stars ripple across the water. For the first time, I didn't feel anger, I didn't feel loss, just release. Revenge had never been about destruction. It was about balance, restoring what had been taken. And now, balance had been restored. In the months that followed, my parents reached out more often. Slowly, the conversations became less about guilt and more about understanding. They began to see me differently, not as the quiet, dependable son, but as someone who had finally learned to stand his ground. As for Ethan and Emily, their lives never quite recovered. They drifted apart, their relationship crumbling under the weight of what they'd done. I didn't celebrate it. I didn't need to. Some lessons are their own punishment. One evening, I found an old photo tucked between the pages of a book, a picture of me, Emily, and Ethan at a family picnic years ago. We were all smiling, carefree, untouched by betrayal. I looked at it for a long time, then set it aside. The past no longer hurt. It simply was. I moved on to a new city, started fresh. New job, new friends, no ghosts following me this time. Every once in a while, I'd hear from people back home, mentioning how time heals everything. But I knew better. Time doesn't heal. It reveals. It shows who stays, who leaves, and who you become after the fire. And as I stood on my balcony one evening, the sunset painting the skyline in gold, I realized something profound. Forgiveness isn't always about letting people back in. Sometimes it's just about letting yourself move forward. I didn't destroy them for revenge. I exposed them for truth. And in doing so, I found something far better than justice. I found peace.